Well, with that, so as you think of them, let us know in chat if you've got questions. I wanted to start with Kevin because I know, because I've had the pleasure of working with Kevin and his staff, that both Cal North and Ballistic have player assessment programs. And so I wanted to kick it off with Kevin and ask you to talk a little bit about why do you assess players at all, and what's the benefit you're getting out of those assessments?
Yeah, happy to chat about that. I mean, one of the things I think, I've been running clubs for 20 years or more in different parts of the country, and one of the more important things I think they need to do, and they struggle doing in general, and it's not sometimes the most enjoyable part of someone's job to do, is player evaluations. I think it's one of the #1 tools that can help keep the player, the coach, and the parent on the same page. And accountable. And the challenge gets to be, from a club's perspective, is, you've got 500 players and you've got 20 plus coaches, and, how consistent are you able to do those, between coach and coach? And I think when you're able to find the tool that allows you to make it easy for coaches, right? You can standardize the way you do it between coaches, and you can make it everyone on the same page, which is really vital, because when you're thinking about the evaluation, the #1 thing players and parents pretty much want to always know is, where does my child stand in the coach's eyes, right? What are some of the things they need to improve on? What are some of the things they do really well, right? And they don't want to wait until the end of the year when they're trying out again next year and not making the team to have somebody tell them, well, you're not strong enough here, or you didn't improve on this, when that information would have been vital to them throughout the course of the year. So they could have worked on some of those things. So I think the evaluation process is one of the most underutilized tools, but one of the most important things clubs can do for individual players.
So when you think about the benefits of doing that assessment, you talked about players being aware of what they need to work on and what they're doing well. What other benefits accrue, not just to players, but to other parts of the organization or the club?
Well, I think when you're consistently doing something at a high level, it helps professionalize the club, and it helps the club kind of move to another level. At the end of the day, we all know parents are spending quite a bit of money on their kids playing youth sports, and soccer is no different. And the expectations that they have that comes with that gets higher and higher every year. And I think this is just one of those tools that allows, again, to very easily to professionalize your club and to kind of separate yourself from the competition many times with some of these simple types of programs and tools.
So Joyce, you work in all kinds of things there in Cal North. You've got ODP, you've got coaching education. When you're looking at player assessments, what are the varieties of applications you see in terms of evaluating players and helping them get better?
Well, Kevin speaks from a different area, which is probably more important. However, I look at the administrative side and what we can carry over from coach to coach, club to club, in ODP, head coach to head coach. And I think it's really important that we can give these kids some kind of consistency and standardization in the assessment process. So there's a bigger picture. Coaches will be able to sit down with their players that they haven't seen in a while, and maybe they're new to a club. They can carry on that developmental assessment that they have. Coaches can, I'll back up a little bit. We started looking at this for our organization for ODP because we change coaches every year. The kids do not play for the same coach every year. So it's really nice to be able to have something, an evaluation of where they were at going forward and then going forward to the next season. It gives the coach something to be able to look at. But I look at this year being really important, especially for clubs that have already used this and are currently using this. Some teams can't run full-on tryouts, and they need to lessen the number of players they're bringing in. This is going to provide a tool that's got information already in it that coaches and DOCs can look at and be able to use going forward on trying to field a new team. And I think it's going to be a great tool for us in the future doing exactly the same thing, whether it's COVID or some other, you can't run tryouts because of the smoke. I mean, last year we had a day canceled because of smoke. Yeah. So there's, on fires. So this tool is just, I think, lends some consistency to where the players are at any given time and is useful. No matter who goes away in a program, there's DOCs that change jobs and there's coaches that leave clubs. Right. So this is going to be a good tool for that.
And Ruth, let me just add in there real quick, because when Joyce was speaking there, we can't underestimate the value of keeping that player history, in your club. And, at Ballistic, we used to do the papers, evaluations, right? And you hand that paper, to a player and it's pretty much gone. That coach leaves for whatever reason the next year, and there's no history that's brought forward by the club for the new coach. And yes, there's some other different ways of doing things, but the ability to keep that history of that player year after year after year after year and see the progression and see what the prior coaches, are commenting on, I think is huge, because one of the things, again, that parents complain about is the prior year's coach didn't have any input into next year's coaching selection or next year's team selection, right? With a new coach. We can tell them they do all they want, but they don't believe it, right? But when you have that history, technology wise, in your library, the new coach doesn't have to schedule all these meetings with prior coaches. He can just go into that player's, player evaluation history and see what prior coaches thought, and then make his own determination. But it really helps that process.
Okay. So institutional memory. So it's not just a tryout tool. And it is accurate to say, I've worked with a number of clubs who couldn't have tryouts at all, couldn't put kids on the field. And they went back and said, if what we need to do is create teams and keep our players engaged, keep our coaches engaged, and they had that information, they could still create teams. And if kids need to be moved between teams, say later in the year when they can actually get out on the field, they can do that. But they could keep teams together. They could give kids at least a sense of belonging, even if it was only, via Zoom, and keep kids registered and engaged with their clubs. So that's been useful this year for a lot of people. What questions do folks have about player assessments and that value, or even TeamGenius as a tool? Do we have some questions, or should I keep going with Kevin? Okay. It's the after lunch doldrums, huh? Right. So looking at, you've got data, you've got a way to add some consistency and a little bit of standardization in a game that is very fluid and can be very subjective. Who hasn't yelled at a referee in the last week? Talk about how TeamGenius makes that assessment process easier for you.
Well, the assessment process, one of the things I fell in love with was that you could standardize your own club template within the system. You didn't have to use a provided, player evaluation tool that might be used for a bunch of different sports. You were able to customize your own template, which I think is important because every club, values different attributes, player attributes. And I thought that was huge. And then also being able to, you didn't have to buy equipment. Coaches could be looking on their phone and just simply scrolling. This was one of the first tools at Ballistic that I was looking for, because I was looking for something that I kind of call coach proof. And I say that because I come from a coaching background. But sometimes you got to make it really easy and straightforward for your coaches, or they kind of push back, right? So this was so easy for them to use. They could scroll, like we were saying, you know, a 1 to 5 ranking if that's how you set it up. You can categorize the different percentages within each age group about, you know, how much you know, the technical skills going to count at U10s versus U12s or whatever you want. So there's a lot of customization to it at a club level. It's easy for coaches to use. And from a director standpoint, when you've got 20, 30 coaches and you're trying to manage the process, you can also go into the back end and see exactly what coaches are doing the reviews, the quality of what they're doing, and you can make sure that before you hit send, you know, from a player evaluation standpoint, you know, you've got your ducks in the row, and now all families in the club are getting their player evaluations on the same day.
Okay.
So it solved a lot of problems that most people don't think are there.
Oh, so one of the things Kevin is referring to is TeamGenius not only lets you evaluate your players using your cell phone, but also it has an email function in it. So when you're gathering your scores, if you want to run reports for your kids, it then allows you to email those reports to your players and your parents right from the program. So you don't have to do like downloading and standing on your head and exporting and all that stuff. It's all in there. Joyce, when you think about in the past, clipboards and paper and the logistics of getting your coaches out there for an ODP tryout, what does it look like from a program management standpoint to have it living on your laptop and your phone as opposed to a whole bunch of clipboards?
Oh, I was so excited when we decided to go down this road. I mean, and Kevin had already been using it, so that was a plus. But for me, it is huge. It's not only an impact of the money we spend to provide all the tools to the coaches for just tryouts, and that's just tryouts. It's also managing that part, making sure everybody has the clipboard, making sure everybody has the player list, making sure everybody has the evaluation list. You know, being able to get those evaluations back to the head coaches from evaluators that have provided evaluation of the players. It can be a logistical nightmare, but it's also a lot of work. We don't want to miss anything. So we need to make sure everybody's covered with all the tools they need, and this is going to eliminate all of that. And that's the best part. And then Kevin mentioned something really important, is that this tool is going to make it so that they can go back and they can even sit and think about the evaluations they've done or collected from other evaluators that have worked the tryouts. I like the fact that they're going to have it right at their hands. They're not going to be struggling with information they need to get back from other coaches. It's all going to be right in this system at any time. And if we had a coach get upset with us that had to leave or has a family issue that they can't be there for something, Kevin can get into all of this system. I can get into all of this system. We're not going to be behind the 8 ball for any player.
One of the things when I joined TeamGenius, they were all excited. Ben will remember this. The week before I joined, they had just come out with a new report. And so the reports you can run for a single player with that player's scores, how they did in the tryout or the team evaluation. And it'll even run a report that'll rank your players like best to not so best, right? And so you could literally tell mom and dad that, you know, you're ranked number 5 on the team and this is why. But the really cool thing that they had just rolled out was a report that could take assessments over time. So if you had a player that started with you at, say, 12 years old and they're now in high school, you literally could take those assessments over those years and run a report that says, well, this is where you were when you were 12. And now this is where you are now that you're getting ready to graduate and, you know, maybe go play soccer at your favorite university. So it's got a number of reporting abilities, both the here and now and over time. So your coach could say, you know, this is where you started, this is where you are now, this is what we want to work on this year.
And just to add to that, Ruth, that even is added to this throughout the course of a normal soccer season, right? You know, one of the challenges that clubs have with their coaches is it's evaluation time or it's evaluation week, and they all scramble for the most part behind the scenes to get them all done.
Yep.
So you wonder how much time is really put and thought is put into them when they're scrambling to get them done. But this tool allows them to evaluate their player year long. So every training session, they can pick a player out. Every game, they can go into their car, update something on a player. So if they're continually just doing small little increments every week, every month, the evaluation process at the end, when it is due, is literally push a button and it's all done if they're really on top of it. So to me, again, it helps coaches with time management. You know, the ones that have full-time jobs, they're coaching 2 teams, they've got kids of their own. You know, their bandwidth outside of just training and games and things like that is limited, and it's real, right? You know, so I think, again, I fell in love with this tool just because it helped them with time management, right? And maximize their time that they do have to give to the club and the players.
There's a little hint inside of TeamGenius now, if you're an evaluator, beside each player's name or number, because you can program it to either show you a player number or a player name. It's really easy to do. So if you're in a tryout and you don't want to know the names of the kids, you want to be a little bit more objective, you can just see numbers, player, you know, bib numbers. If you're a coach, you can see the kids' names. But there's a little circle beside every player name or number that tells you how much of the criteria they've been evaluated on. So you might have players that you hit everything and it says 100%, and then you have that player that somehow you missed and it says 30%. And you know you need to go back in there and look at that player a little bit more and fill out the scores and the assessment for that player. So there's some hints inside of it that will help you keep track of, have I really looked at all the players I need to look at? So, question from Donald. Does Cal North have a special rate for its members for using the product, or is the pricing on the website? I'm either going to give that to Kevin or Ben, because I do training, not pricing. I admit it.
You know what? I would actually have to go back and look at the details of the deal to be able to answer that accurately. I'm not sure if there's special pricing for Cal North clubs. The pricing is already very, very affordable. It's, again, one of the secret things that I found was you pay a per player fee basically, but you have access to that, not just at tryouts or not just at the review time. You have it year round. But I'd have to go back in and look at the details of that to answer that accurately.
Right. Ben, can you talk about the website? Because I know there's information on the website.
Yeah, a ton of stuff on the website. So as far as pricing goes, I mean, it's on the website. Donald, if you do have any questions on, you know, specifics, happy to answer it either offline or anything like that. But I do believe that it's, so $5 per player, and you can have as many coaches, administrators, directors in there as you want. So we try and keep it pretty simple.
Right. The other thing is that the pricing means you can evaluate that player as many times during the year as you want. So if you want to do it weekly, if you want to do it monthly, if you want to do it twice a year, once the player is in your system, right, you can have a field day with evaluation.
And one thing I'll add that just popped in my head was some of our coaches now are at Ballistic are in year 2 of using it. And one of the things they found very, very useful this year was when they chose to do the video chat with their player, just staring at their phone and hitting the video chat instead of the system emailing a PDF, very professional PDF to the parents and the parents printing it out or reading it to the kids. This was a personalized message, from their coach that said something like, "Hey, Johnny, this is Coach, Doug, and you had a great year this year. You continued to work on and improve on these things. You had a great attitude," and it really personalized the messaging that was within the player evaluation, but it helped connect the player to that coach. And I thought that was very beneficial for the coaches that chose to spend a little bit of time doing that.
So the email system, the email component of TeamGenius, you can use it to do one-on-one emails and really personalize that message with the report, words of encouragement, and it allows you, as you're working through scoring players, you know, rating them on various skills, it's got a comments piece as well. So it's not just I rated you from 1 to 5 on how well you shoot. You can add your own comments. You can type them in, or it'll use the microphone on your phone. You can dictate them in and you don't have to type. The other thing it does in the email system is if you wanted to send out, say, an offer letter to an entire team, and you're thinking, man, do I really want to write 20 individual emails? You can actually batch those and select the kids that you want on that particular team, create an email that's personalized to them. It'll say dear in the player's real name, and then make that offer letter to the whole team all at once. You don't have to send 20 emails. So the system is really versatile depending on how you want to configure it and how one-on-one you want it to be.
Yeah, one of the biggest thank yous I got was at Ballistic when we chose to, you know, pursue using this technology was from our club registrar, because part of the hassle at the back end that somebody has to do is all those emails that go out to all the invites and offers for each individual team. And then how does that tie into your club's registration system? And what we were able to do was put out a common, you know, email. You've been offered a spot on this team, you know, blah, blah, blah. And there was a link that took them straight into the club registration system where they could accept that offer without her having to touch it. Right, you know, a second or third time, right? So on the back end, as a coach, I wasn't even thinking of those benefits when I did this. I was thinking of the front end with the coaches and the players and all this other stuff. But, you know, the registering for tryouts and the email communication on the back end right into your system, and even the easy upload of the tryout information into the system was very beneficial, but selfishly, I wasn't even doing it for those reasons. I was doing it for more the soccer reasons on the field.
Well, one of the other secret and wonderful pieces of the communications component is you can add your own attachments. So not only can you send out reports to the players, but if you have a code of conduct you want to send to your parents, if you have directions to pick up your new kits at the local sporting goods store, directions to the field complex. Once your team is in TeamGenius, you can do that and use it for more than just assessment kinds of things. What questions do you all have? How it works, what features are there? Okay, we'll turn it around. I'll ask you a question. When it comes to player assessments, what's your biggest headache? What's the thing that keeps you up at night and just frustrates you about doing player assessments? Anyone?
Quiet group.
I was going to say they have no frustrations.
Is there any way you can actually pull the application up and maybe show folks? Maybe that would help spawn some questions.
Oh, I could do that. Hang on. Let me pull something up and then.
And Ruth, Mark's seen the Zoom reports in the past, and anyway, you could show a report because that's really the parent-facing part of it, which I think is really cool.
Okay, I'm gonna pull up Gabe's account. I want to make sure I have results. Oops. Not quite. I have to find something with data in it.
Hey, Kevin, while she's doing that.
Yeah, keep going.
Can you speak to, I think I'm taking notes just for my own edification. At Ballistic, do you guys use this ongoing for the player development plans, or is that separate from this app? And if it is, can you kind of go into that a little bit?
No, we use it for the initial team placement and the tryout. And then coaches use it continually throughout the year. And then we're required at the club to provide a mid-year evaluation to the player and a post, at the end of the year evaluation. But they also use it throughout the year on a continual basis to keep kids updated with, how they're doing.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Yeah. Which again, I think I've always found at the end of the day, at a base level, parents and players just want to know where they stand with their coach.
That's right. And I think, to answer your original question, Ruth, if I put my coach's hat on, I mean, if the app is able to do that, throughout the year, that's a big headache because, there are some coaches, at least that I know, that still do it old school paper and notes get lost and whatnot. So having this all in an app and making it transparent with the parents and the player, as Kevin described, would remove a lot of headaches, from the paper standpoint, in my opinion, without ever using the app. So.
All right. So this is this is a more generic one. Last Thanksgiving, we had a little contest about evaluating your Thanksgiving dinner, right? So this way I don't have to show you any evaluations of minors. And so with setup, your scoring forms are your old pieces of paper you used to put on your clipboard. Your player pools are how you organize your kids to be evaluated, usually by age and gender. So 04 boys, 09 girls, those sorts of things. When you're adding players, you can upload them from a CSV file, basically an Excel-like file. We also have some integrations with Sports Engine and TeamSnap. We're working on one with League Apps. And once players are in your system, you can move them around in the system. Your results, you can look at them in a variety of ways. Remember, this is a Thanksgiving, so we rated, how was your main course? How was the turkey presented and prepared? How was dessert? What was your overall meal? And then we have an owl who does our math for us. And he takes all of these scores, which kind of look, some of them are words, some of them are numbers. Our owl is really smart. And normalizes all that on a scale of 1 to 100. So you can now rank your meals or rank your players by your scores. And there is a piece where if you rank them all, you can actually stick them on teams and say, well, we're going to put Gabe on this team and we're going to put this one on a different team. And you run down that list of players and you slot them into your teams. And all of a sudden now you have a team that you can email, that you can run reports on, and keep them together and get on with doing what we really love, which is getting out on the field.
And one thing I'll add to that too is you can also have multiple coaches evaluating the same players. Right.
Yes.
So you can have, and one of the things that's great at a tryout is, you got a tryout, you've got 50 kids you evaluated, you might have 3 people that have been assigned to evaluate them. They each have access to this. They're each scoring the kids their own way. And then they can go afterwards and sit down on the benches and compare their kids and their scoring and have a little bit of a debate of why the scores are so different between some players right then and there. Right.
Right. Now the interesting thing is if we all decide to become evaluators, when I'm working on my phone, I can only see the scores I put in. I can't see what Ben's putting in or what Joyce is putting in. I can only see mine. So if you want to copy off of somebody else's paper, you're going to actually have to sit on the bench with them and have a conversation. You can also, there's an evaluator list on every page, and you see there's a whole lot of evaluators that came to our Thanksgiving dinner, right? Well, if I decide that Cole, who's a really nice guy actually, if I decide that Cole doesn't know anything about soccer, why on earth did I have him be an evaluator? If I unclick him, his scores get pulled out of my report. They're still in TeamGenius, but they get pulled out. So you can actually look, if you're an administrator, at your evaluators and how they rated various players in various aspects.
Yeah, so basically you can toss out the high score and toss out the low score and have the other ones averaged, right?
You can do that as well.
Philosophy as a club.
When you're doing your setup and you're building your scoring forms and your evaluation schedule, you tell the OWL how you want the math done. So if you want only the best score, if you want an average of everybody, or if you want to toss out the high score and the low score because we're like the Olympics, and just have the ones in the middle, you have total control over that. There are a whole bunch of reports that you can run. Evaluation reports are for the players. The basic evaluation report is just your raw scores, right? So here's the raw score. The main course was really yummy, and here are some comments about that. It's a good thing this isn't a serious one. If I go back and I say, I want the performance report, this is where you're going to get rankings. I wonder how this is going to work for the Thanksgiving meal. So the difference here is you get the scores, but you also get the session pool average. So in this group of people who ranked Thanksgiving dinner, the average for the overall meal was a 4.31. This one only rated a 4, a little below average, right? And that means the pool rank was he was 2 out of 2. So this report would say if you had 20 players trying out for that team, it would literally give you the ranking of the player and how their score compares with the overall pool. A little more information. Some people love sharing this with parents. Others are a little more cautious about it. And the development report is going to actually be a little tricky to show here, but this is the report that takes the evaluation and performance reports over time. So when you were 12 and when you were 13 and 14, this is the report that glues them all together and shows you those trends. Literally will graph out the scores of your players and how they have changed over time. You can also run a series of reports for your coaches, rosters and placement and team detail, so that you're giving your coaches, here's a name, here's a phone number, here's a parent name or an email, things you can give your coaches to make their life easier. There is a way to do custom reports if you've got really specific data that may be a little unusual. And if your phone breaks, which I do not wish on you, you can actually print a paper scoring form of what you used to put on your clipboard. However, if you do that, then you have to enter those numbers into TeamGenius to make it all glue together. But there is the option of doing that. That is probably the fastest overview I have ever done of TeamGenius. Are there other questions about it? Yeah, I don't think I've ever done it that fast. Well, if you've got questions, feel free. You can get hold of Joyce or Kevin. I'm Ruth at teamgenius.com. Ben is Ben at teamgenius.com. Kind of easy to remember. We'd be happy to answer your questions. help you out, because it's I mean, the best part of my work days are when I get to work with clubs to make their life easier and to make your programs and your organizations work better. So thank you for your time. Let us know what questions you have. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.